suggestion as we go ahead and get started. We are recording this, so those families who are joining us late or aren't able to join us at all are going to have the opportunity to watch this webinar at a later time. Really want to welcome you to ARC. If you had the pleasure of joining us in July when we started introducing this program and what we had to offer at that time, the system has evolved as we have grown it to over 1,100 students at the elementary level alone. So there's been a lot of work that has happened over the last few weeks to hone what the program looks like and to be able to share with you some additional details. Colin, if you can move on to the next slide, please. So the three of us are here with you tonight. For those of you who were really looking forward or hoping that some of our teachers would be joining us, that really just wasn't feasible. We have 52 elementary ARC teachers, and so we wanted to be able to streamline this information for you. So you have myself, Tara Sparks, you have Craig Hamby, our Director of Elementary Education, and then it's our pleasure to introduce to you Doug Barton, our ARC coordinator as well, to give you an overview, and then you'll be able to communicate more with teachers once you get that final placement. Colin, moving forward.
So welcome to all of the ARC families that are joining us today. Also welcome to teachers. We have some teachers that are watching that are interested in learning more about what parents are asking, so I'm really excited about that. I wanted to start and just tell you a little bit about my role. The title ARC coordinator is a new one to Lindbergh, and so there are some things that I think will help you distinguish who I am as opposed to, let's say, your building principal. So you can see some of these differences laid out on the screen. First of all, think of me as the virtual principal of ARC. So I'll be in classrooms, I'll be popping in, I'll be talking with students and teachers, I'll always be present. This is my dedicated role in the district. And so I'll be involved every day. So if you have that kind of everyday question, then just reach out and let me know. I'll also be involved in the program management in terms of the support with special services that we have, any kind of needs that you have related and the teachers have. I'm going to be coordinating all of that. I'll be sending out the communications to ARC families. I know you've been very patient with that, and I thank you. More communications will be coming, but you'll be hearing from me with news about ARC. I'll also be leading professional learning with this great group of teachers. These are amazing teachers, by the way. You're going to find that out. And then issues that are related to like absenteeism, minor discipline will be on my plate. Building principals would handle any kind of major discipline issues, and then building principals also involved in teacher evaluation. So that's the basic difference. Next slide. Okay, so the schedule. You might have seen a mock schedule that we had worked on in advance, and this is now what the current schedule is going to be. So I just want to walk you through it, and then we'll talk a little bit more about specials after this slide. So the day starts with office hours, 8:30 to 9, and those are times that you can reach out and communicate with a teacher. Then all of the students join at 9 o'clock. They'll join into the Zoom meetings with their teachers, and they'll do morning meetings. That ends at 9:30. Then you'll notice that ELA and social studies are combined in kind of a humanities space. The teachers do have the ability to make some changes as they need to fit what's going on in their day, but generally we'll start out with ELA. Specials are also taking place throughout the day. I know the blocks are a little confusing here, but just know that each specials happens every day for each class, and it's 40 minutes at a time.
Hey, Doug.
Yes.
You're breaking up a little bit with your audio. Do you want to kill your video feed and see if that helps?
Could you say that again?
You're breaking up a little bit with your audio. Do you want to turn off your video feed for a little bit and see if that helps with your connection?
Let's do that. Okay. Lunch and recess are all common across the grade levels. So there's 1 hour every day that's designated for kids to do a few things. 1, get lunch. 2, take some time, get off that screen and have some recess. And another part that might be really helpful is give kids an opportunity to kind of relax, calm down, and rest before we start the afternoon session. The afternoon has STEM learning, so mathematics is happening, science, technology, engineering. More specials are happening in the earlier grades. And then you'll notice at 2:30, there's something called win time. Also, you can see asynchronous learning. This is time where kids have that choice of what they need. So they're self-selecting what they need in order to be successful. So that could mean a number of things. It could be that there's something that they want to continue working on at that time so that they stay on pace. It could be that they're involved in strings. And so they're going to be meeting with the strings teacher at that time. It could also be that they've had a long day and they're tired and they just need a little time off. And that's okay. They can take that time off. So the last time they're connected always with the teacher is 2:30, and they have that extra 45 minutes. Finally, we end with office hours, and the teachers are available again for you to reach out between 2:15 and 3:45. Next slide. So what do specials look like? So specials are made up primarily of 4 different activities, 4 different learning spaces. So we will have art happening, we will have PE happening, we'll have music, and then we have an additional recess block to give kids a little bit of extra off-screen time. Now you notice that there's that cycle there, and I want to make something, an important point out of that, that we're going to set this up actually as a double cycle. So instead of a 4-day rotation, we're going to call it 8-day rotation. And here's the reason why. So we are going to have some different kinds of projects in art and music that will start out with face-to-face learning with their teachers. They'll start those projects with the teachers, and then when they loop back around to that next time, let's say that they're doing art, they're going to use that as an asynchronous learning time. So they're going to take that project back out, and they'll be able to work on it, finish it, and share it with their teacher. So we'll have what we call those asynchronous art and music times in the second time around on the specials classes. Next slide.
All right, Doug, while I'm talking about slide 6 here, Colin sent you a text about your audio if you want to check that out while I'm talking for a moment. So learning. Our plan with ARC, or our plan for our students this year, is that our elementary curriculum remains the same. Our priority standards that we feel are the most important essential skills for students to master by the end of their grade level remain the same whether you're in phase 2, phase 3, or in ARC. The pace of which we move through stuff could be a little bit different, but we have, with Mr. David, who started the webinar off, we've been working with a team of teachers, and we have courses for each grade level, kindergarten through 5th grade, created in Canvas. Teachers can access all the curriculum necessary, the priority standards, the resources we have to teach those priority standards, and kind of an idea of the order in which they should be taught. So if you're in ARC, you're in phase 2, you're in phase 3, we have a trajectory of our curriculum, of our standards that we're going to keep with no matter what building you're in, no matter what program you're in, just to keep us all kind of on the same page. But, you know, pre-pandemic, we had priority standards, and we still have those priority standards, which we feel are the most important skills for our students, and that doesn't change. But on the slide, we have a few points. One of the questions that comes up a lot is how much screen time in this full day? So with that, balance is the word I chose to put on the slide because, we like to say that there's 50% synchronous and 50% asynchronous. And when we're asynchronous, you could be off the device, you could be reading a book, you could be doing something else, you could be writing in a journal, you could be doing an art project, you could be cutting things out and pasting things. So there's a multitude of things students could be doing at that time. So with that, we don't want students, and when you see the schedule and when you see ELA block, that doesn't mean they're going to be on the screen for that full 90 minutes. They might be on for 30 or 40 minutes, and then they might get off for a little bit and then return for a small group instruction with their teacher. But teachers are going to be responsive to the needs of their classroom and their students and make those decisions. Now, I will say it's a sliding scale that some days may require more synchronous than others. And then, we might have a week where it's a little bit more asynchronous because the students have built their capacity for the different platforms that we're using. So it could move back and forth throughout the year. We're going to try to keep that 50-50 split. And that's kind of where we are with screen time and the balance of when they're on with the teacher, when they're doing independent tasks. Some of the things you saw on the schedule that Mr. Bart was talking about, ELA, that's English Language Arts. So that's going to encompass phonemic awareness, phonics, word work, spelling, grammar, writing, and all things reading. And it is our priority. Reading is our priority. We want our elementary kids to read. So that's our number one priority. When you see STEM on the schedule, that's going to include science and mathematics. And I forgot to mention in ELA, you might be asking yourself, where's social studies? Well, we have taken our social studies content standards and we are going to embed that into our English language instruction. So we will be reading nonfiction text. We will be writing nonfiction and replying to articles that we have read. So social studies will be embedded in with our ELA. And then SEL stands for social emotional learning. We do have a social emotional curriculum that our teachers will be using. And this is, part of the community building. This is the class meetings that are going to take place. You might have a student who is new to our district and new to a district in a virtual setting can be a challenge. So our teachers are going to be, aware of that and make sure we're doing everything we can to build our classroom communities that we have in the ARC program and making sure everyone feels welcome and at home in their classroom. There will be whole class instruction. There will be small group work with the teacher. And then our specials teachers, art, music, PE, they're going to push in to the class in Zoom. Our librarians will do that as well. Our art teachers can sign up with the different librarians for lessons as well. I'm going to talk a little bit more about library in a later slide. And then as Mr. Barton referred to, asynchronous, when you see that on there, that means I like to call it anytime activities, or maybe it's away from the teacher or independent activities, but those can be done. We've got scheduled time in the day for them, but, students can also, if they don't get it finished, they can be working on that, at any time before the next class period. So hopefully that answers some questions about the learning that will be happening in the ARC program. And we hope that it's going to be very similar to what you've always seen in Lindbergh classrooms in the past. And it will help our students be successful for the next grade level. Next slide, Colin.
All right, so as we've shared previously, ensuring that your children have access to the same personalized learning opportunities that they would have if they were in person in ARC was a really large priority for us. So for our gifted programming for students who are a part of LEAP, you will be actually receiving an email tomorrow that allows your child to select choice-based LEAP activities. So that's going to help to drive the schedule as to when they go to their LEAP time. So that'll be 75 minutes of actual live learning time. I know when we first designed ARC, that was meant to be something that was kind of asynchronous. We're able to build in some synchronous or same time learning experiences with LEAP, as well as some offline self-paced LEAP work as well. So be looking for that email tomorrow. We do have PEGS students within our ARC program, so we have dedicated PEGS teachers as well who are in communication with families about what programming looks like specific to ARC, which really follows a similar schedule, specials programs, etc. But that's all been accommodated. In terms of special education, our special education teachers have been working on distance learning plans. There's a lot of complexity in schedules right now, and so they're working through those details. I know I had a question in the Q&A earlier about, will that always happen during win time? That's the goal, to try to use that to the best that we can, but in many cases that won't be possible. So we'll work with teachers throughout the schedule to make sure that core instructional content is not lost and free up more asynchronous time for your children so that they can have access to their special education programming. For those of you whose children do have IEPs, there is that town hall tomorrow at 10 o'clock as well, where a lot of the special education specific questions will be addressed. For our English language learners, our ELL teachers are working specifically with the same students, just like special education. Students will remain with the person that they know, with the people that they know. So our ELL teachers are working specifically with the students in their home school. So those relationships will still be embedded as we continue this work. So while we have dedicated ARC teachers, we also have teachers in home buildings who are still working and connecting with your children. Reading intervention is another area where that will happen. We do have one dedicated reading intervention teacher for ARC, but we fully anticipate that teachers from home schools will also be working with students in the virtual platform. And similar with counseling. Again, one of our goals throughout this has been to try to keep students connected to their home schools and the relationships that they have. So their school counselors will be a resource for them as well. And then strings, there was a question already in the Q&A about strings. So strings, our 4th and 5th grade students will meet with their strings teachers on Mondays and Wednesdays in that asynchronous time from 2 to 3:15. And then our 5th graders will do strings on Tuesday and Thursday on that same time period. So that schedule we definitely have locked down, and then the others are in the process of being finalized now. If you can go to the next screen for me, Colin.
Can I answer another question, Dr. Sparks?
Sure.
There was a family that's new to the district that wasn't sure what strings was, and this is basically the orchestra program for our 4th and 5th graders.
So it has been a puzzle. As I said, we have over 1,100 students in elementary ARC, and so our priority has been to make class lists that are well balanced, that ensure that students are connected with kids from their home schools, that we are keeping at least close to our district staffing models. ARC continues to fluctuate a little bit where we're getting students enrolling even today. So we've got some areas where we've got a slight increase of 1 or 2 students over what we would have in an in-person scenario, but nothing that is out of the realm of feasibility for our teachers to be able to support your kids appropriately. So as I said, homeschool connections has been a really big priority in this as well. I don't think we have any, or we may have 1 or 2 classes that are fully homeschool. Most of our classes, in order to balance out numbers, are a mix of 2 schools coming together in their ARC placement. And then the teacher from one of those schools is most likely a teacher of those groups of students. So there's still that connection to peers from the homeschool, and where possible also to a teacher from the homeschool. It did not work out perfectly across the board for that to be the case at all grade levels, but where we could make it happen, we definitely prioritized that. And then pod placements as well. Many of you shared with us, I think we had about 400 requests for pod placements. Many of those obviously were duplicates as we were working through making those connections. So we were able to do that in our class placement as well. Next slide, please, Colin.
So we'd like to talk a little bit about learning platforms. No matter what grade level you're in, you will be using, your child will be using these platforms. So the first one is Zoom. We do use Zoom for all of our video conferencing with students. So that's what kids will log on to in the morning. Canvas is a learning management system. And so Canvas is that navigational place where kids are going to be able to find content from their teachers. They're going to be able to submit assignments. They're going to be able to participate in discussions, all sorts of things. But it's kind of the hub of the learning that's going to happen. And then another app to know about is Clever. And so Clever is basically a single sign-on system that we use to help connect kids easily to a number of different apps that the district provides. So those are our learning platforms. If you want to learn more about those learning platforms or others, visit the Lindbergh Schools page and find the blended learning page. And there you'll find a page for resources that has more information. Materials and devices. So you have a school supply list that your home school sent, and we recommend that you do pick up those supplies. Those will definitely be useful for learning with ARC. There's also take-home kit and device distribution, and this is happening on Tuesday. So between 4 and 7, you'll be going to your home building, and you'll drive through and pick up both of those things. The take-home kit contains all sorts of materials and manipulatives and things that the kid will benefit from as they're learning from their teachers. And then the device will be there as well. So K1, those kids are receiving an iPad, and 2 through 5, those kids are receiving a Chromebook. You'll see all sorts of manipulatives. My recommendation is to consolidate and keep what you receive in one place by that learning space so that we don't lose those pieces because the teachers are planning on using them. Next slide.
Sorry, I was looking at the Q&A. I apologize. I'm going to go ahead and answer a couple of the Q&As real quick as they're building up a little bit down there. One of the questions was, what training have the ARC teachers had to prepare for this? The 6 days we have before school, teachers are doing a lot in these 6 days, but there have been other opportunities over the summer as well. Just best practices for a virtual classroom, training on best practices in Zoom, Canvas, some of the programs the teachers will be using, Dreambox, Seesaw, and Newsella. So there's been quite a bit of training that's occurred, even going all the way back to last March, actually, but even all the way up through this current week. So lots of professional learning going on for the teachers. Someone had questioned what was win time, and that is whatever I need. So it's a time for the teacher to intervene when they see a concern that they need to remediate for a student, or if they see a way where they need to extend a student's learning. That's what WIN stands for. Someone asked about sending home priority standards, and I will make sure that Mr. Barton has those and he can get those home to in a future communication with all ARC families. And a good question came through about they have a first grader. How much am I going to need to help my first grader out? Probably a little bit more in the beginning. And as they build capacity for using their device and the different platforms, you'll be able to wean away from it. So I would say probably a little bit more in the beginning, and the kids are very resilient and pick up things quickly. So I think that you'll be able to pull away from your time with them as the days go on. All right, so now let me talk about access to books. So I gave a deep tease earlier about library. So students who are in the ARC program will be able to access our school libraries, and we will be communicating the process for how students are going to be able to request a book. And we will have a system, I don't know if I want to call it a mailbox system, but a container system outside of each building where students will be able to, when they request a book, we're hoping that maybe the following day, it may take 2 days to get it out there, and that you would be able to come by in the evening and visit the container and find your student's name, their package, and you would be able to take their book. Teachers might also use this system every couple of weeks if there are items that they want to send home, maybe guided reading books, or there might be some reproducibles that they want to send home, and this would be a way that we can use it to get those items to families. Librarians are going to zoom into the ARC classrooms, and they're going to instruct the students on how to request a book from the library. And our librarians in the 6 elementaries will also be servicing the ARC students. So ARC teachers will be able to sign up for a library time, and the librarians will zoom in and meet with them just like any other class in the district. And we're hopeful to start the process of checking out library books by September 8th is when we I was meeting with Mrs. Seiske today, and we think that's our target of when we'll be able to start this process.
All right, next slide, please.
Okay, upcoming dates. You are going to find out who your teacher is tomorrow. So be ready for that communication. Also meet the teacher. What we're going to do is our teachers are going to be creating a short meet the teacher video to introduce themselves, and they're going to be creating a sign up so that you can start and meet them in person to have those intake conferences. So you'll get a little bit of both. You'll get the video introduction, but then you'll have an opportunity to meet your teacher and talk with them. Coming up on Tuesday is a device and take home kit, which we mentioned before. Expect that you're going to get a communication tomorrow that contains a sign up genius to let you sign up for a time. Now, where do you go? You go to your home building at that time, and you're just going to drive through. Be ready just to let us know who you are. Driver's license is fine, and we'll get the device and the take home kit to you. So don't worry about coming at different times. If you have multiple kids that are going to ARC, bring them at the same time. We'll take care of them. And then finally, the first day of school is August 27th. So at 9 a.m., we're all going to go live and we're going to start learning. Next slide.
All right, so some frequently asked questions, and then we'll go through the Q&A. I know I've been trying to. If you see us like staring at our computers very feverishly, it's because we're typing back some answers to try to keep the flow of the webinar going. In terms of student absences, if your child is absent, you just need to let the teacher know. There is not a school attendance call-in line in the same way you would in a typical way, just informing teachers. I know a lot of times there are questions about Zoom recordings as well. What if my kid is absent? Will they be able to go back and view the recordings from the class? And the answer to that, and the short answer to that is no. Student privacy is a really big priority for us in this work. And while teachers, if they're recording something that has no student faces or voices or anything that would make a student identifiable, by all means, they could share those. But the vast majority of what they'll do will be very interactive with students. So being able to share out those recordings is probably going to be a pretty limited opportunity. But I think that when you think about if a student's absent during the school day in a typical physical environment, the teachers will work with students and catch them up to make sure that anything that they missed, they have access to and that their learning progresses. We also really try to avoid one-on-one meetings between our teachers and our students in order to really protect students. Now, if we're in a situation, if a teacher really needs to and it's unavoidable, a lot of times parents, if you're available in the background, you can say, hi, I'm here and I'm supervising, then that's great. If not, we will record those just to have a record in case there were any questions about appropriateness, et cetera, on that particular one-on-one environment. So those are some just details about Zoom recordings. And then assessments. A lot of questions I've started actually in the Q&A about assessments. So our hope is as much as possible to do assessments virtually. For instance, we have at the elementary level, kindergarten through 3rd grade, we have FastBridge that we use both as a dyslexia screener, and then we also use it for some other things like LEAP screenings. So we know for sure that kindergarten and 1st grade with early reading, we will be able to do those assessments virtually. The BAS assessment, which is a grade level reading assessment, we'll be able to do that virtually as well. FastBridge, when we get up into A reading at the 2nd and 3rd grade level, we have some issues and concerns about the validity of the assessment if students are taking that independently, or if and whether or not it's in a setting that we can really use the norms in the way that we would like to. So we're still working out some details with FastBridge about that, and we'll make some decisions about that soon. But where we can do assessments in a virtual environment, that will be our priority. Questions that we have seen from other webinars, and then we can just go through and start tag teaming some of these questions that you have shared with us here as well.
Hey, Dr. Sparks, can we ask if Mr. Davitt wouldn't mind? There were a few Canvas questions, Mr. Davitt, about parent access to Canvas, and when Seesaw and Canvas are working together, will students be submitting through Seesaw or Canvas? I think I know the answer, but I'm not positive. I'd rather let our blended learning coordinator answer that one.
Absolutely. So for the parent part of Canvas, there's going to be an email coming from your the child's teacher that will detail this out every way, the ways you can get your parent account, or how to create a parent account and how to connect that to your child. Submitting things Seesaw versus Canvas, some of that will be up to the teacher. There are ways that Seesaw does fit inside of Canvas, and so there's one place for the kids to go to process their information and to submit things, but some teachers may choose to use more of the directed Seesaw approach and use Canvas for more of the communication pieces out. But that will be communicated clearly from the teacher to the child and to the parents.
I see a question as I'm going through here about, again, connections to the homeschool. So building principals are still your building principals. If there are any specific needs that you have that are specific to, let's say you want to have your child evaluated for additional services. Your school counselors will be the ones who are involved in that. So really there's a lot of intersection between our ARC faculty and our homeschool faculty. And then Doug helps to coordinate that fusion of the two. So as a family of, let's say, Sappington Elementary, you are still a member of the Sappington PTO. You are still a part of the Sappington community. We're just having a virtual kind of side school that integrates within that.
Sarah, there were a few questions about LEAP testing. Would you be able to answer those?
I can. So our LEAP screenings start in 1st grade, and they won't start in the fall. They'll be later in the school year. So we're still working on some of the details about that and what we can do virtually versus what we need to do in person. And then 2nd and 3rd grade screenings happen through FastBridge. So those are the three. We use something called the NNAT, and first grade, and then FastBridge in 2nd, and in any other situation, we just need time before those happen. What?
You were frozen on Wayne, but maybe it's me.
No, I just got a connection is unstable. So I don't know what you missed. Am I frozen again? I'm frozen.
No.
Can you say it again?
I can hear you.
Okay. Well, you got really still, so I wasn't sure if you could hear me. Anyway, so I'll repeat what I said in case you didn't hear it. So in 1st grade, we have an assessment called the NNAT for screening for LEAP students. And then in 2nd and 3rd grade, we use FastBridge as an achievement test screener as well. So those things will continue, and then we'll follow up with families based on the results of those assessments.
There were a couple questions about when they come to pick up their device next Tuesday, if you could repeat the time, and then teachers will be present for kind of a beep and greet. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the times are from 4 to 7 on Tuesday, and you'll drive to your home building to pick up your device and the take-home kit. And teachers have signed up for one place because this will be happening at every elementary building in our district. Most teachers have 2 different buildings represented by students in their class, so they have to pick one. So there's a chance that you will meet your teacher, be able to beep, say hi, but there's a chance that you won't. And that's why we're scheduling the video to meet the teacher along with those intake conferences when you get a chance to really talk and have a conversation. And we're not going to wait on those. We'll be able to start those as soon as we can. So that's the answer.
Colin, there were also a couple questions. Do you know the size of the iPad and the model of the Chromebooks?
I've asked about the model of Chromebooks, but I've not heard back because each grade will have a slightly different version and model. Size of the iPad, I think it's a 6th generation iPad. So it's like the 9.83 inch screen or something like that. Is that what we're looking for?
I think so.
Okay.
That sounds right. There's been a couple questions about supply list, and you can use your homeschool supply list, which should be on each of the homeschools websites. And then there's been a couple questions. Are we supposed to bring our kids on Tuesday the 25th? I think it's absolutely fine to have your child with you in the car as you drive through and pick up your supplies. Tara, do we know when the recorded version of this webinar will be?
Usually, I would say we could send it out. Colin, do you think by Monday?
Absolutely by Monday.
Okay. It takes some time to download it and get it ready to go. I've seen some questions also about technology and why iPads in kindergarten and 1st grade, and then Chromebooks at 2nd through 5th. It really just has to do with what was available within the district. As we implemented the new technology at the secondary level, we've taken the devices that we had and are using them at the elementary level to ensure that every student has a device. So kindergarten and first grade, we were able to ensure iPads across the board there. There will be some second grade classrooms that have iPads just because of the sake of numbers and how it worked out. So it's not an even split, but it was just a way for us to ensure we had enough resources for every student in the district.
There's been a couple of questions about class sizes. So our class sizes are probably going to all, regardless of what grade level you're in, are going to be somewhere in the 20s, you know, anywhere from 22 up to 27, depending upon the grade level. And then, Doug, there were a couple of mentions of the Upgenius being full at certain schools already, so we might need to add some slots, perhaps.
Well, that would be that would be for the students who are in person.
So that's not the ARC Upgenius?
Correct, because those haven't been sent out yet.
Oh, so they should be wide open then.
Yes. So I see there's a question about contingency plans in case a teacher is having Zoom issues. That is something that we've started working through. Our teachers have access to the building. This isn't like in the spring where we had a stay-at-home order. So while we'll have some teachers who are opting to work from home, there is always access at the as well. So if we do have an issue with internet connectivity, the expectation is that our teachers would email our parents, let them know, and then assign a new time to log in, and that gives our teachers time to be, if they're not currently in the building, to resolve that and to get to the building. We're hoping that is not a frequent occurrence, but realistically, we know that that technology is not always as friendly as we would all like it to be.
Someone put in there, what is LEAP? LEAP is the Lindbergh Early Achievers Program, so that is our gifted program at the elementary. There was also a question about would the take-home kits be able to move from home to home if the student was doing some work at mom's house and at dad's house? And it's not a great deal of things. So I do think the student would be able to transport it easily from residence to residence.
I see a couple of questions specifically about class size, and our range is 21 to 27, depending on grade level. So we're right in that range overall. Some grade levels are on the lower end of that range, some are at the higher end of that range. I know there were some questions also about after September 18th, what ARC numbers are really, really high. Will the district reevaluate that? We're continually watching those numbers and knowing that there could be a lot of movement between the 18th, between now and September 18th, based on how things are working individually for families and where the district is in terms of of phasing overall, if we're in phase 2 or 3, et cetera. So we're continuing to monitor and balance those class sizes as any changes are made.
There's a question about, went out to all parents about email passwords being changed, and does my first grader need to check their email? They will actually get emails. I don't think that teachers regularly ask our primary students to check their email, though. I can say that my students, when they went through, didn't have to. But I think if they stay on their Canvas course, all those announcements, most of the teachers will make an announcement and then it automatically emails that announcement to the students. But if they're regularly going into Canvas, they'll still get all the information. So there's a question. We got an email from Sappington to pick up devices Monday. So Monday is going to be for the phase 3, 4th and 5th graders that are not in school yet. They're going to pick their devices up on Monday. And then all of our ARC students are going to pick up on Tuesday.
This question has come up frequently about if we have our own devices, can we use those? The district provided device is preferred, and for much of that, it's because it has things loaded onto it, especially with the iPads specifically. But you know, we'll work with families as to what is needed there. Just scrolling through to see what other questions.
Colin, there's a question about if I have multiple students using Canvas, am I able to switch back and forth as a parent to their accounts? I believe yes. I believe I've done that as a parent, but Colin, you could probably answer that better.
100%. And so as a parent, you log in, you're going to be able to see all of your children's courses on your dashboard. You can definitely switch back and forth between them. And that we also have on our webpage a little tutorial on multiple kids in the parent account.
Colin, can you go back to I believe it was the 3rd slide. We've had some requests to see the schedule again.
Absolutely.
There's also a question about future conferences. At this time, all parent-teacher conferences within the district are going to be through Zoom virtual conferences. We won't be having any face-to-face meetings, phase 2, phase 3, or ARC at this time.
To clarify, this ARC schedule for elementary does not shift when the district shifts between phases. That is something that happens at the secondary level, and that happens because secondary teachers teach a mix of students in person and in ARC. At the elementary level, we are able to merge the elementary homeschool staff who work with ARC within our ARC teaching schedule as well. So it's a little bit different in terms of how those two programs work, but the elementary ARC schedule will remain the same throughout the semester.
There's a good question here, and I might need Mr. Barton or Mr. Devitt to help me out with this one also, but we will have, if you're having a little trouble with your tech at home, have kind of a helpline where even some of our high school students will be helping us out. Is that correct, Colin?
That's correct. It's called the Copilot. And so we definitely have a system in place that, so one of the lines of defense would be the tickets could go to the high school students. They can answer them very quickly or help with that. But these tickets also go to the district tech people. So there is multiple people looking at these tickets and being able to respond to them.
All right, and I'm seeing a lot of comments on here about the fact that building principals sent out an ARC sign-up genius for buildings, and that's what may be causing the confusion. So we'll go back and double check that and make sure it's clear in tomorrow's communication. There's another question I saw that I was going to answer. Now I've scrolled past it and I can't find it. Oh, substitutes. Yes, so we have a substitute plan in place. We are realistic that if a teacher is unable to teach, a whole day of instruction or asynchronous learning for your kids are not, those are not realistic learning experiences for kids or very effective. So we do have sub-plans in place with our ARC teachers for either a short-term absence or a long-term absence. While things might look a little bit different on those days, it won't be a day where it's like, oh, we just don't have school today. I also saw a question about snow days in the winter. Do they apply to ARC? So one of the things that is new this year from the state is the ability for us to have virtual snow days, essentially, where students could have a virtual learning in lieu of a snow day, and we retain that as a calendar day with the state. So I would imagine that that would be the case district-wide, not just for ARC. So you'll find that there will just be a virtual experience on what would traditionally have been a snow day in the past. If you want to switch between phases, we recommend that you don't, or between ARC and in-person learning, we recommend that you do that once. These schedules are complicated and trying to place students in classes. So if at any time you feel like this isn't the right fit for me and I think I need my child either in person or in phase 3 at my child's particular grade level, just let your building know and they will work through the logistics of that transition.
As I dig further in there, it seems like the majority of the elementary sent out a sign-up genius for ARC, which they didn't need to do, but I appreciate their going after it there. But we will have to get those from those individual buildings and let Mr. Barton use that as the basis for where he starts. So hopefully we won't have to change anything on you there. If you did sign up at Dressel or Concord or Long, I know I've seen people from those buildings so far.
All right. We are running, I know I'm just trying to scroll through these. There's a question about hotspots. So we do have that hotspot request form that's been going out from building principals, and technology is reaching out to those families who have made that request because of a lack of internet access. Class lists are going out tomorrow, and our teachers will be sharing details on how students get logged in and connected. Just seeing some themes of things as I scroll through here quickly. We'll go back and check your questions and make sure that there is clarity for future communications if there's anything that we have missed in today. But I know that there is another webinar scheduled. So we are going to need to close out here. Doug and Craig, are there any other questions that you're seeing that we need to make sure to address immediately?
There's one. I don't think anyone wants to hear it, but it said, is there any chance that my child will be moved to a different class to rebalance? We do not want to do that. We absolutely do not want to switch these students at all. However, I feel we need to put it out there that if there's 22 kids in a class and 18 of them all of a sudden want to go back to phase 2, we're not going to keep a class of 4 students, and we may have to look at something at that point. So hopefully we do not go that route. I think you're all going to be very pleased with ARC and enjoy your teachers and want to stay there. We have a fantastic staff, but I can't give you a definitive no on that, even though that would be the last thing we would want to do.
I want to thank you all for joining us tonight. We're here as a resource for you to help transition into what we think is going to be a very exciting and really progressive school year in so many ways. Please look for a copy of this webinar to be going out to you, as we shared earlier, on Monday, slides as well, and reach out to us if you have any questions. Thank you.